called the what do you call this? Problem-free analysis. Now again, I was saying it's a very linear to cause and effect, very straightforward. Now, and you see a lot of your hasil kerja already up at the box. Now, the next tool, still part of the what's your problem module, is called the big picture analysis. The big picture analysis attempts to discover the relationships between different components of a society and what they do and how they contribute or how they can help with solving the problems. Right? So we've had like traffic, greed, racial discrimination. Now, the big picture analysis, actually all of the input comes from you guys. I will just be drawing, it's a visual mapping tool, I'll just be drawing it up. But the input will come from you guys based on questions that I ask. Okay? So now, you know how well I can do this with the mic, right? So I'll just put it down first. So, where do we live? Malaysia. So what is Malaysia actually? What is Malaysia? Country, yeah? What constitutes a country? What makes a country a country? Society. Society? People? Sorry? Territory. Government. Government. Okay. Sorry, nation and nation and a state. Is there a difference between the two? What is the state? What is the nation?
State is all in the actual infrastructure, the government, the building, the law, and the nation is what identifies us as a people together.
Good. Now, there are many components, as I said, many components that make up a country. Let's start with people. People make up the country as well, right? All of us here? All of us here Malaysian, right? So, how many Malaysians are there in this country? Does anyone know? 28 million. Can we agree on that figure? 28 million people? Sorry, here. So you have 28 million people. Who are these people?
You and I.
Yeah. Sorry?
China, India, Melayu.
That's one way of categorizing. It's one way of categorizing. Sorry? Legal migrants. Illegal migrants as well. So let's not use the word race. Let's use the word ethnicity. So how many ethnic groups? Does anyone know how many ethnic groups are there in Malaysia? Lots. 3 major. So like you said now, China, Melayu, India. So what's the numerical what do you call this? What's the biggest ethnic group in terms of numbers? Anyone know how many percent of the country is Melayu? 60. 70. Can we go with 60? Okay. 60, yeah? So you have 60% Melayu. What's the next biggest ethnic group? Chinese. How many percent? 20. 30. Can we use the figure 30? Is that okay? But I have a question. Is Chinese an ethnicity? What is actually Chinese, the word? What does it mean? It's a? Is it a race really? Is it a race really? So, the word Chinese, I mean, at least to me, it means that you're from a citizen of China. Same as if you're Malaysian, you're a citizen of Malaysia. And also if you're Indian, you're a citizen of India. You're born in Malaysia, you are Malaysian. But, if you want to look at it from an ethnic point of view, you may be Hakka, Puchang, Teochew, whatever. There are different ethnic groups. I mean, we tend to use those constructs to make our lives simpler lah. So dia apa? Dia Cina. Oh dia apa? Dia India. Dia bukan Cina atau India. The only people are Chinese and Indian. The tourists coming from China and India. Everyone else is Malaysian. Right. All of you guys are Malaysian. Right. So now we covered two groups. Now again, just for the purpose of this conversation, we just use race lah. Because there's only one race lah, actually, human. So 60% Melayu, 30% Chinese. What's the next ethnic group? Indian. Okay. How many percent? 8%? Fair number? 8%? 8. And what else is left? Where do the most of these nine go?
Indon.
Itu lah Subi. Orang masalah from Indonesia. Sorry? Well, we know what happens. But don't worry, just for the purpose of this discussion. So you have 20% left. 2%. Yeah, quite big. 2%. Dan lain-lain. So I mean, in Sabah there are over 40 ethnic groups. Sarawak, similar number. Where I brought my family actually. So we have a very similar number, I think about 20 odd ethnic groups. In Sabah there are about 40 odd. And in some states in the country, Serani are actually considered Indonesia. Serani. But of course the classification of Serani varies from state to state. Okay, so now we've broken down the country, the population of the country into the ethnic groups. What else is used to categorize us? Religion. Everyone agree? Yes. Religion is used to categorize us as well. So, how many religions do you have in the country? A lot. Can someone name some religions we have here? Islam. Hindu. Okay, let's start with what's the biggest religious group? Muslim. How many percent do you think there are Muslims in the country? 80%? 60%. So at least 75. At least more. So let's so should I put down what? 65, 70%? 70%? About 65. Let's go with 60. 70%. Okay? 70. So you have 70% Islam. What's the next? Largest? Buddhist. How many percent do you think? No idea. Anyone want to hazard a guess? 20. Sorry? 20%. Do you think that's fair? 20%? No. Because there's only 70%. 80. Let's go with 50. Is that okay? Yeah. Okay. What else? How many Christians are there? Well, almost all of them. I mean, I think it's the official 10%. So actually the Buddhist Taoist group is larger than 10%. How much? 15, 25, at least another 25%, sorry. Another 20%, 15%. So you have the agnostics, the free pushers. Oh yeah, the Hindus. Oh yeah. How many percent Hindu do you think you have? 5%. 5%. Okay. We've broken it down by ethnicity and religion. What else is used to categorize us? Money. Hold that up. Okay, remember, hold that up. Money. Don't worry, I'll come back to you. What else? What else before that? Sorry? Food. Gender. Who said gender just now? Okay. How many genders do we have? genders? What are the genders? Usually what do we call non-line actually? There is a term that we use. LGBT. LGBT. That's the term they use. People who don't self-identify or of different sexualities or different sexual orientation. So it's called LGBT lah. Lesbian, gays, bisexuals, transsexuals. If you want, the whole thing is LGBTIQ, besides and queer.
Okay, but don't the gay guys also
True. But there are some people who are transsexuals. There are some, but I mean, again, like I said, in the larger scope, how many percent do you think there are in the country? Let's just say 1%. I think being general, because no one has ever done it. So you have 49%, 49.5% male, 49.5% female, is that fair? No. Or do you think there are more females? More male. How many percent females in the country do you think? 60?
There are more girls than guys in the world. Just because you don't meet many girls doesn't mean
So do you think 60% is a fair estimate?
Why is it to me?
Someone said 55%. 55%. Is that a fair estimate? Female. So you have 55%. 55% female is the everything up. Put it down. And you have 1% LGBT and what's that? 44%. Yeah. Okay. Now gender, ethnicity and religion. Using money. What do you call that?
status.
So economic class. Class. Economic class. How many classes do you think there are? I mean, not this class, but how many classes do you think?
Rich, medium, poor, very poor.
Is that fair? Rich, medium, poor, very poor.
Upper class, middle age.
Can we have 3 classes? Rich, medium, poor. What do I draw?
Oh,
This is not. Okay, so now, how many percent of the country do you think is poor? How many percent of the country do you think is poor? A lot. A lot. We have varying answers. Someone, based on what? How do you define poverty? How do you define poor in this country? Below 2,000, is that a fair estimate? But let's use monetary level. Let's use monetary level. What do you think? You can raise your hand. What do you think defines poverty in this country? What money defines? So how cheap do you think you have to define? 1,003. Below 800. Below 2,000. Okay, usually in this portion, most of the impact we put is some purchase we are rushing to. I'll give you some hints now. The statistics department in Malaysia, defines poor as earning a family of 5 earning 719 ringgit and below. For a family of 5. For a family of 5. 719 ringgit in Peninsular Malaysia. It's about 900 ringgit in Sarawak. It's over 1,000 in Sabah. But that 719 ringgit should cover your education, housing, your bills, your food, your clothing, Oh, okay, sorry. You know, yeah?
That's right. See,
Okay, so the Statistics Department of Malaysia defines poor as 719 ringgit. A family of 5 earning 719 ringgit a month, which has to take care of your housing, your clothing, your food, your education, your medical, and anything else. If you want to watch a movie, you want to go to the park, that must all come from the 719 ringgit. Based on that statistic, somewhere around 23% of the country is poor. Now, other people, other organizations have come up with another figure to use, which is 1,500 ringgit. 1,500 for a family of 5, the same things. Okay, now, okay, and let me ask you that. If you're earning 1,500, then you want to post that. 1%, that is 5 people. 5 people earning 1,500. Using that number, the CPI Asia, Center for Policy Initiative, has estimated that the country has 40% poor. Has a 40% poverty rate. 40%. Okay. So it's surprising. I'll give you some more background. The Statistics Department defines poverty at 780 ringgit. But the state, in other ways, the government in another way has also defined 3,000 ringgit and below is poor. Because anyone earning, family earning less than 3,000 ringgit gets to apply for 500 ringgit one-time payment from the government. So the statistics can be misleading depending on what you want to present. I'm just giving you a lot more information now. Okay? So using, like, can we use the 1,500 baseline figure? So that gives us 40% poverty, which is a big chunk of the pyramid. What else? Middle class and rich. How many percent of the country do you think is middle class? 30. Another 40%. 55. How many percent of the country do you think is rich? Earning $100,000 and above? 5%. $100,000 and above. Annually. 5%? 10%. 10% rich. That is 50% middle class. Okay. So now we've broken down our society, the country, according to ethnicity, religion, class, and gender. Okay, now, what affects you on a daily basis? Earlier I asked you the same question. What affects you on a daily basis? Problems that you face. So you came out with a list of what? 12. Traffic jams, greed, racial discrimination, materialism, blah, 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 corruption. Now I want to start with let's start with racial discrimination. How do you experience racial discrimination in the country? Can someone tell me how you experience racial discrimination? Anyone had a racist experience?
Not on first hand, but speaking on behalf of this affirmative action policies. Sure.
Yeah. Affirmative action policies. That means for
certain race,
sure,
favoring a certain race.
Does anyone here not know what is an affirmative action policy?
I don't know.
Sure. Can you explain? Stand up, just stand up.
Yeah, so something like you've got policies that actually give more favor towards a certain race, like let's say scholarships for a certain race.
So that's affirmative action. But again, affirmative action is sometimes necessary because there are people who are born with a smaller socio-economic window. They don't have as many opportunities as the rest of us, right? So on its own, affirmative action policies are not racist,
Yes.
but the implementation can be.
Yes.
Can be racist. So how is this? How are the policies implemented? By houses. Some of them, my color buys houses for 10% cheaper than some of your color.
Something like that.
Right.
And also scholarships, places in government universities.
And who puts into place these policies? Government. Okay. So let's start with government. We'll map out government now. So what is exactly government? What is government, I guess? What actually constitutes the government of Malaysia? Anyone know? Sorry? Cabinet. Cabinet is part of government. Right? Let's draw cabinet for us. Where do you think cabinet fits here? Where do you think cabinet fits here? Above the people? Below the people? So, who is in the cabinet?
Member of Parliament.
No.
Nigeria. Sorry? Ministers. So the cabinet is made up of ministers. How many ministries do we have in the country? Does anyone know? Does anyone know how many ministries we have in the country? 32. Our friend here says there are 32 ministries. Is that okay? Can we use that number? 32 ministries. Or does anyone else have concrete information how many ministries we have? That's fine. If it's wrong, it's wrong. If it's not, it's not. Don't worry. So we use the figure of 32 ministries. Can we list out a few of the ministries that we have? Education. What about you? Transportation. Financial. Sports. Finance. One, two, three. One more. Tourism, defense. Tourism, education, health, home ministry, agriculture. Okay. Got a nice place here. Right. And who heads the cabinet? Who is the head of the cabinet?
Prime Minister.
The official post is Prime Minister. You have the Prime Minister as the head of cabinet. You have the Prime Minister as the head of cabinet. Is cabinet the government? Is that all the government? Is there any other part of the government that we have? Parliament.
Judiciary.
Someone else mentioned judiciary. Judiciary. No worry. Judiciary. Hey, that's fine. So we have. No worry. So you were saying Parliament. Where does Parliament fit here? Does anyone know where Parliament fits here? Where does Parliament fit in this structure? Next to the cabinet?
Higher.
Ya kan? Cabinet, Parliament, then judiciary. What do you call this? So you have cabinet, parliament, and the judiciary. Well, actually, what is it called? So someone mentioned legislative just now. So, what is the legislative branch of government. So you're talking about these three branches of government. So what is legislative? What is legislative? The parliament. So the parliament's role in government is to legislate laws. And this is the
Exactly.
and judiciary, the courts. Right. So now we have a very basic structure of the country, right? The people and the government. Now, someone in racial discrimination, someone mentioned family upbringing. What affects your upbringing? What affects your mindset? Parents. What else?
Media.
Teachers. Environment around you. Where you grew up. How you brought up. So you have culture. Peers. So let's start with media. Let's start with media. Where does media fit in here? In the structure. So media culture, all is outside this, or is it like next one? Is it outside government? Is media part of government? Okay, let's talk about mindset. Mindset. So someone just now mentioned media. What is media? Okay, those are the types of media, new media, old media. Right? Can someone give me some examples of old media? Television. What else?
Video.
Let's start with TV. How many channels do we have? Let's just do something.
RTM.
So, TV. So you have TV as part of media. What else is part of media? Radio. So, what radio station do you have?
5M.
Right, so we have radio, television. What other forms of media do we have? Newspapers. We can go on and on. So you have media, old media, you also have new media, right? What is new media?
BBC.
Social media. Okay, now we mapped out the people. What affects our mindset? Media affects our mindset. Do you think it affects your mindset on a daily basis? You watch TV, you listen to the news and all that. Then you have the branches of the government. Now, you have a very general idea of. So these people here, these three branches of the government, they have power to govern us. Where does the power come from?
The king.
The king? Constitution. Who said the king? On what basis do you think? Why do you think the Constitution gives us the power to govern? The Constitution is the base of the government. Where does the Constitution fit in this picture? So earlier we were just talking what makes up the country. Someone said territory. The Constitution actually defines what the country is. The physical borders, your rights, and all that. And also gives power to these three institutions of state to actually run the country, govern. That's what gives them the mandate to govern. Now, where does the king fit in this? Is he on par with the Constitution? No. Just a question. No, don't worry. What is the king's role in the country? Is he a leader? So this country's system of governance is what? Constitutional monarchy. So you have the constitution, and then you have the monarchy. What do you think? To the side? What is the role of the king in the country again? I'm question. Is he the head of state? Is he the head of state? Who's actually the head of state? Okay, now. Let's look at it. Now we have a general outline. Anything else you think we should fit here? Based on your big picture analysis, your problem key. Anything else? Remember, think back to your problems. What affects the problems? Anything else you don't fit in here? So, what contributes to your problems? So, government favoritism. You already have government here. Racial discrimination amongst the people. And also mindset. Anything else from your big picture analysis? Problem key. Anyone else? Suggestion? Citizens. Write them out already. What else? What else affects you on a daily basis? Actually, if we had time, we can go further and further. But this will give you a general understanding of how the country works. Okay. So let's say you have a problem with party. Who do you talk to? JBJ. JBJ is fine. Not the JBJ ministry is fine. What do they usually say to you? Has anyone ever tried to lodge a complaint with any government body? But what do you think usually happens?
They just say they do something about it.
No. There was a guy who passed out in front of one car.
Okay.
And then I called the police. And they were like, what do you want me to do?
Oh, yeah. Well, when did this happen? Let's go back to Parliament. Okay, let me ask you this question. Are these guys elected? No. How do you get into cabinet? How do you get into elected to be an MP first, then Prime Minister appoints you. It's either an MP or a senator, right? So where are senators in this picture? Where are senators? Where are MPs in this picture? So are these guys? What comprises? What is Parliament made of? Elected people. Well, we call them members of Parliament. Yes. There are two houses in Parliament, right? There are two houses in Parliament. Dewan Negara? Dewan Rakyat. Dewan Negara. So where are MPs in this? Dewan Rakyat. How many MPs do we have? 222 MPs. And senators, how many senators do we have? How many senators do we have? Anyone know? Anyone want to hazard a guess? I'll give you another hint, 70. 70 senators. Okay, so MPs are elected. How are senators elected? Are they elected? Do you know what the selection process is? Does anyone know what the selection process is like for senators? Yeah, don't worry. There is no right now. Actually, there is. Prime Minister appoints with the King's consent. So basically the King's role is to find out, to consent basically. So the Prime Minister will say, hey, I want this guy here, and the guy say, okay, fine, go ahead. That's how it works. So these guys elected? So the only thing is, what does cabinet do? What does the executive do? Policies. Make laws is legislative. They legislate laws. So policies come here. These guys, judiciary, if we have problems. Law enforcement is also under executive because you have the police and the home ministry. So these guys, media as well. Who do you think owns media? Private enterprise. Very different. So they have laws also governing. They have laws governing media. Need a permit, which is renewable as a year. Now, this is a very rough outline of the country and its institutions of state. And we can go even further. Yeah, but yes, at this point in time, what can we know? Okay. Right. So now, you have all three branches of government. All three branches of government affecting your lives on a daily basis. This is influencer. What can you do as a citizen? Vote. How often do we vote? So you have. And how is the voting process done? SPR runs the thing. SPR runs the election, and you are a registered voter. You have to be a registered voter. So you go through SPR here. What is SPR? Does everyone know what SPR is? So where does the SPR fit in this power structure, in this picture? Where does the SPR fit? It's supposed to be independent. What other independent institutions do we have besides the SPR? NACC? Supposed to be. Those are institutions that are created directly from the Constitution. Right? So yeah, NACC, SPR. So direct from here, NACC, SPR, what other government? SPRM, the SPRM and NACC. So, you vote once every 5 years. Who do you vote for? 222 people. Huh? Okay? You vote for 222 people every 5 years. But you see the lines of influence extending from media, extending from judiciary, parliament, cabinet, every day of your lives. And once every 5 years, you vote. Does this look fair? No. Thank you very much. That's the first part of it. So you have, for the side who are listening over this side, so you have 3 branches of the government: executive, legislative, and the judiciary, making decisions, making policies, passing laws, enforcing laws on a daily basis, every day, hari-hari. And this is a democracy, so we have voting. Voting will happen every 5 years. But these lines of influence affect you every day. Is this fair? How many of you are above 21 registered to vote? Okay, good. But do you believe that voting is the only part of democracy? Do you think voting is democracy itself? What would you change if you saw this? You know this. You know the system is unfair now, right? Did you know it was unfair before this? Yes. Yes. But does this help you realize how unfair? Yes. So, what would you do? Let's have some suggestions. What would you do? What would you change in the system?
Change the system.
Change the system. Wait, don't worry. Nothing wrong. What other steps would you like to do to change this? What other steps? What would you change? So you have only one. Would you like to have an election every day? No. Not practical lah. But what else would you like to do? How do elections happen? Is anyone here familiar with how elections happen?
Anything was advantageous, but if the current Prime Minister wants to resolve it, he can resolve it and have the election run after a certain period of time.
So you have state and federal election. Right?
Yes.
Actually, this big picture analysis, you can go further. You can go to state powers as well. But we'll keep it really simple, right? But this will give you a general idea. I mean, Parliament also has you also have Adun on the state level. Ahli Dewan Perdana Negeri, right? And the state legislature. But again, not fair. I'm sure we're all in agreement with that. Not fair. Right? Every day your lives are affected, Every day you are told who you are, where you can live, who you can marry. Every day. You're carrying it in your ICs right now. The state tells you who you are. But is that really who you are? When we're doing the representation just now, this is called representative democracy. You elect for representatives that represent you in Parliament. When you were doing the spaceship just now, when you went up, when you had a representative go up, how do you choose the representative? Was it like show of hands or volunteer or kau pergi lah? Right. I'm sure some of you at least did that, right? But in a system of representative democracy, how do you select through elections? But are these representatives really representative of us? Look at the people, you have 55% female, 44%, 45% let's say, 55% female, 45% male. How many females are, how many percent of parliament is female? How many percent of cabinet is female? How many percent of judiciary is female? If you're really talking about representative democracy, right? And someone mentioned age. 21 and above, only you can vote. Yeah. Correct? So, you have 28 million people. How many people do you think are above 21?
More than half. Less than half.
Less than half. You know what I mean? Not in terms of registration. How many are above 21 do you think in the country?
More than half.
More than half. Should be around half. Yeah, I can share you some statistics. Half the country is under 35. Half the country is under 35. How many under 35 in Parliament? Kari is my age, which is not under 35. Who else? Who else? Any young MPs? Do you see? NAO? You see an MP? Oh, I don't know. Nurul Izzah? MP.
Yeah.
Happy? Mantai dalam.
Yeah.
She's under 35 lah. But how many others are under 35? So based on this, your breakdown of the country, we're neither representative well enough in terms of gender, in terms of age. Because old people boring lah, kan? So, going back to the question, what would you change? One is to change the system. Okay, that one very big lah. But some small concrete actions, what would you change?
Voting age.
Voting age. Let's go back to the numbers now. So under 35, 50% of the country. How many do you know the number of the people who are eligible to vote?
It's more than half.
More than half.
It is definitely more than half.
How many people are registered voters?
Very small.
8 million. 8 million. How many are unregistered? 3 million. 3 million unregistered. 8 million registered, 3 million unregistered. So that's 12 million. 12 million. 11 million. 11 million. So 28 million people, 11 million of them are eligible to vote, but only 8 participated in voting in 2008. Is that even representative? Again, I'm asking you, is it representative? No. Not even representative. Betul? So voting is important, but it's not the be-all, end-all of democracy. Does anyone know what democracy means? The word democracy. Well, that's what democracy is from Greek. Democracy, will of the people. Will of the people. There's a direct translation. So you have the will of the people. Do you really think the will of the people is being shown through this system? No. Because a large number are not being represented. Because of many reasons. Either you don't want to participate. Like even just now when you were doing the exercises, some held back. So that's not participating. Right. But if you look at how the system is built and designed, if you don't participate, who wins? Then they win, right? Win. If you don't participate, how else can you participate in democracy? Malaysia. Yeah, that's fine. What is actually? Okay, let me introduce you to something I'm a big fan of. It's called democracy. It's sometimes called direct democracy. Okay? This is actually, to me, and you have another system called proportional representation. You have, this is not proportional. Proportional representation is like in Singapore. So let's say they must have an MP per every 10,000 people. So even though the constitution is that bad, let's say you have 40,000, that means there are 4 MPs coming from that. Right? But we don't. You have some areas with 100,000 voters, like 140,000 is like 100 over 1,000 voters for one constituency, which gives you 1 MP, and you have another constituency with 6,000 voters, which also gives you 1 MP. So 100,000 here, 1 MP. 6,000 here, 1 MP. Fair? No. Not fair lah. I'm not telling you it's not fair. No, I'm asking you. I'm not here to like tell you what to think. I'm just asking you to think. That's all. So all these people here, again, all these people here, all the power, where did they come from in terms of the social class? Middle to upper. Do you see any of the bottom 40 in parliament? No. Is that representation? No. It's not representation at all. So now back to this participatory democracy. Sure, you guys have some form of internet access at home. I'm not giving you homework. I'm just giving some suggested reading. You can Google participatory democracy. You can look at the current systems of governance of Switzerland. You can look at the systems of governance of Switzerland. At least in terms of institution, there are some things you can do that you can institute. Like, anyone familiar with the Peaceful Assembly Bill? Everyone here familiar with the Peaceful Assembly Bill? Basically, you can't have moving street protests within 50 meters of wherever the government tells you not to. So that includes mosques, churches, bridges. So you can't protest. But you know in this system like here, what else can you do? I'm asking, I mean, Edmund will explain further later on what other steps you can do. But I mean, I'm sure you can write to your MP, you can write to your senator. You don't have much hope. Sorry. Why?
Well, basically, they want to get access to power.
Under power. So you in power, they want to get it more.
I would, because then they are the representatives of the people. And they're not getting enough power to be the representatives.
Sure.
So, in that sense,
you give them more power.
Give them more power, give them more representation.
Sure.
That way, then, that's the voice of the people. Assuming, nothing aside all hidden agendas.
So you have 3 branches of government here. Why are the branches of government split? Does anyone know why the branches of government are split apart?
Check and balance system.
Check and balance, separation of power. Right? Okay, keep that in mind, separation of power. How do you become a minister? What's the prerequisite? MP. Must be either an MP or a senator. Someone mentioned earlier. Right? So if you're an MP or a senator, you're already here. So you're already in one branch of government, which is the legislative. And keeping in mind that you need to have separation of power, but you're also a minister here. So where is the separation of power? You're already involved in legislative branch of government. And you are selected. Yes. And who does the selection? Prime Minister does the selection. So where is the separation of power now? You know who selects the High Court judges? He selects him. Who selects him SPN? Who selects Najib SPN? Is it 10,000 voters in Pekan? Is it us, the 28 million people? Or is it 130 delegates in UMNO? 130 delegates in UMNO chose him as the Prime Minister. 10,000 people in Pekan voted on who will become the MP. Najib won in Pekan. And because 130 delegates in UMNO voted him as the President of UMNO, he became Prime Minister. This is a convention. The party which commands the confidence of the people will be picked. The president of the party will be picked as the Prime Minister. Again, is this democratic? No. So when kita cakap hari-hari buih semua keluar demokrasi, what is the democracy? Correct. So you have 198 ways. Where's Edmund? Oh, Edmund. I finished early. You came out. I'm just going to wrap it up. 5 minutes. So for me, I'm a big fan of this, participatory democracy. In a more participatory democratic country, you would have mechanisms such as referendums. Anyone familiar with referendums? Referendum is basically a vox populi. Pungutan suara. It's based on, in Malaysia we've had 2. So technically we have only had 1 in Malaysia. But in the history of Malaya, we had 2. One is the referendum for Sabah, North Borneo, Sarawak, and Singapore, together with the Federation of Malaya to form Malaysia. That was our first referendum. Second referendum was to choose our national flower. But technically, we went against the referendum. We chose something else, then they chose something else. So even during a referendum, the decision is not followed. Other countries which practice participatory democracy are like Switzerland. I'm not saying they don't have any kelemahan, no drawbacks, but I think for me, I think it's a fairer system. In Switzerland, they even vote for your citizenship. So if you want to move to Switzerland, you have to live there for 10 years, pass exams in French and German, history exam, and then after you go through all that, they put your picture up in the town hall where you're going to live, put your bio there, and all the people in the town will vote on whether you get citizenship. And I'm not saying that's a perfect system. I'm not saying it's a perfect system because they also voted not to have minarets on the mosque. Not to have minarets. Towers. Which also, if you were sick, also you cannot have that. In Switzerland, the people, but the thing is, for me, good and bad decisions must come from the people because you are the guys who are living with the effects of your decisions. every day. So you can't wait for 5 years to rectify a mistake. You can't. So I think the root word is this. You must participate. Whether you choose to exercise your vote, that's fine, or not, that's also okay. But if your son, because I have some friends who don't believe in elections and don't vote, my question is, if that's the only form of protest you do, then it doesn't work. You know why? Because if you don't vote or you don't do anything, status quo remains. You can't push against it. You won't move if you don't push against it. If you choose not to, then it doesn't move, it stays there. I understand some here may not like voting or the idea of choosing someone to make decisions for you. I agree completely. I would rather like it macam voting would be brought down to a local level, where let's say between whether Indah Water or Shabas takes the contract for this and we vote for it, not someone in Putrajaya. Because we will be living with those decisions every day. Instead now, someone in somewhere else makes that decision for you, and when you want to rectify that mistake, it goes long way. Well, there are people who do high-level engagement here. There are also people who do level engagement here. And I think both means are valid. One must not be ignored at the expense of the other. Both must be done. Oh, I did not tell you, I used to work for Suara. Early on, I usually introduce myself. I used to work for Suara. It's a human rights organization. Suara Rakyat Malaysia. And Suara, and along with other NGOs, Edmund as well, a lot of good people actually do both high level and low level engagement. I have more faith in this. I have more faith in capacity building for younger people. Because then we all have to do for these old guys to die. Okay, anyway, thank you very much for your time.
Such a system and such a work for a slightly bigger country like ours?
In the US, actually they do practice referendums. And let's say in California, if you can get signatures from 10% of the electorate that disagree with Schwarzenegger, it becomes legally binding on the government to recall for another election.
Within the state?
Yes, within the state. So I'm not saying there's one perfect system from one country you can take wholesale and apply here. But I'm just saying that we should participate in actually forming what kind of country we want. We don't get asked those questions many times. It's only once every 5 years. And after that we're told to like, no, jangan petikai, jangan bersoal. These are all the things you hear all the time. Jangan petikai, jangan bersoal. Yes, wait for next session. Akan datang positif. How? If hari ni my sampah not get picked up, I wait 5 years. So you must participate. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Okay, who disagrees with this model? Which one? This model. No, who disagrees with the synthesis of this model? Because you all said there's a problem in the system. Right? Who disagrees that there's a problem in the system? Nobody disagrees. Okay? Let me add on to your misery. Okay? You have 3 other factors. One factor is that you have the influences of outsourced groups, people that have been outsourced. Meaning, you may not see the judiciary, parliament or cabinet doing it, but they have outsourced certain things to groups we know as NGOs. Right? The NGO model is not here, right?
Yeah.
I add the NGO layer. Okay? So the NGO layer plays a very big part in our society, right? So there's a group of, there are NGOs that do human rights work, education work. There are NGOs that also want to promote certain interests. And there are certain NGOs that also appear to speak about racism in a way which may not resonate with all nations, correct? You know what I'm talking about, right? The NGOs that you look at are also very much based in another form of institution. And the institution is what? Which is very close to what you all are part of. that plays a very large part. Religion. Does religion play a very big part in our society? Yeah. So that other layer of NGOs that may do good work, human rights organization, I just call Swarang, say that Bar Council, right? They also play a role. But there are also other NGOs that like to talk about racism like Perkasa. Right? And that resonates because a lot of the stuff that goes into the mainstream media. And that is an additional influence on our people, right? Okay, that's another layer. The second layer I was talking about is religion. So you look at the main religions in Malaysia, mosques, churches, temples, that is another layer. Right? Churches, mosques. That play another, that influence our people here, right? And then what happens when you have these competing things, when some groups talk about racism, some groups talk about religion, some groups talk about human rights, you have the other factor that you may not necessarily have these same 28 million people agreeing on certain things. So not only you have these outside influences, which is added with these two layers, correct? You also have people within our own 28 million who are against us, who are against the good things that we want to try and fight for, like human rights. Okay, to put it simplistically, okay? I'm not saying that we are always perfect or not. So these three layers add to that mischief, right? But the point about it that I'm trying to make now is that you are in now. I'm targeting, say, FGA. Oh, you have an FGA. You have an extremely important platform, and you told me that you have like 400 over campus here today, right? 472 campus. You have what, thousands of people going to church every Sunday, right? 3 services. You have a lot of youth. That impact, that platform must be harnessed, and that must be used. So we don't see that enough. I'm not talking about FGA per se. I'm talking about groups who we think will be able to try and make Malaysia a better place. Make Malaysia a place free from things like racial discrimination, religious discrimination. So we are trying to link that and UndiMsia through our platform as well as our action groups, try and build what we call youth action groups, YAG. I'm sure some of you have heard of it. If you look at this fact sheet, there's the 4 pillars. For some of us who have been in movement building for the past 13 years, we have built 7 over movements. This is the 7th movement. We have ideated with a group of 30 over people from Lawyer Bureau. Probably the most holistic movement that you can ever find. So we have already ideated it. You just need to actually go forth and implement it. And I'll guide you how in the next module. The 4 pillars is credible information. So we come out with infographics, we come out with video. Credible information based on credible statistics. Process. We facilitate youth and we engage policymakers. So we engage. Of course here, we file cases in court. We take public interest cases, religious conversion, we take ISA cases, we file in court. But more importantly, we go and whack the MPs when they do something wrong, right? And here, of course, MPs are in cabinet. We engage them on issues which need to be engaged. But we give you the tools to be able to do it. You, part of the community, have your own problem, you go and handle the problem. If the problem is parking problem, you go and handle the problem, but we give you the tools. And that's why the tools of 198 ways of non-violent action is so important. Because this probably is for the first time ever in any movement in Malaysia, is being presented as part of a holistic tool guide which we are going to draft very soon. Okay, as a group. So that is the process. We finish what we call a Plan Rakyat, where now you can actually evaluate your member of parliament, and the mainstream has accepted it as a very good initiative. Action is what we want you to do, really. Just with 5 people, we want to build what we call a youth action group. Youth action group is kumpulan tindakan belia, right? And there's about 12, 13 youth action groups, some unofficial, some official, which are here. When you have time, speak to people like Cheryl and Jofan and Sam about how they are in their own community. FGA has to build yours because you are not a small group, you are a big group. It doesn't need to be 80 of you to build a one unit action. You can have 10, 20 different ones doing different things within your local community, within your local church. If God forbid, you don't like FGA, FGA don't give you parking or what you don't like about church? Nothing. Okay? Your youth action group then organized within you to try and solve your own local problem using these tools. Without even talking about big issues of national importance, which is so hard to try and deal with. Of course, we talk about it in this big picture, but what we can actually draw, and I was talking to you about it right just now, some of you, is in FGA, you start drawing the church, right? Is it like that? My drawing is even worse. Okay, FGA church, right? What is the administrative hierarchy of the church? You have what? Elders, right? Right? How many elders? How many? Okay, we just talk about FGA, okay, right? Okay? Okay? How many elders? Huh? No. How they appointed? Are they appointed or elected? Okay, appointed. Okay. So you know who all these 6 are, right? So they make all the most crucial decisions in the church, right? So you have their photograph, you know where they stay, you know the IC number, right? How can you not know?
Not the IC number.
But do they have a Facebook account?
No.
Why don't they have a Facebook account? I never said that. Maybe you should start them on the Facebook account or Twitter account. Oh, all this is being recorded. Never mind, it's okay. No, but what I'm trying to say is there's the elders, right? And then there's a committee, isn't it? Oversight committee, right? Who are these people? Do you know who these people are? You don't know who these people are? You don't know how they are appointed? They are elected. You know what their portfolio is? Yeah. You know what their portfolio is? Can you engage them? Have you engaged them? Is it easy to get a meeting? When there's a problem with parking, who do you go and see? Huh? Who do you go and see when there's a problem with parking? Who is Uncle Lawrence? Okay, so head of security comes under the oversight committee. So has Uncle Lawrence, I'm just giving you an example because I don't know your problem, you are telling me a problem. Uncle Lawrence, has he been able to solve your parking problem? Huh?
There's an actual physical problem.
Oh, it's actual physical problem, right?
It's
but
not something that
do they know about this problem?
where?
I'm just giving you an example because we have done, and everywhere we go, we give you this big picture of our country, right? Because all the issues that we talk about are very big national issues. But this, once you all have gone through this, you are able to actually transpose a lot of these issues, which are very local issues to your church, right? And if you want to try and solve issues within your church, there is something that you can do or must be done now. Because if you don't do it, like just now, right? I saw some groups, right? The quiet ones wanted something, but because it was dominated by the main ones, those who were not speaking and did not speak, could not speak, basically you're just a washout. And if you don't speak and you don't participate, you're basically a washout in a grenade million. Besides all these different influences of percussor, racism and all these things. That's why we promote participatory democracy. In other words, we are saying, and I am saying very crudely, and I've said before, I've criticized many times before, that it is time to make politicians extinct. It is time to get rid of politicians in the sense that all these people are career politicians. They are there for certain benefits. They are there for either women, money or whatever, right? That's how we perceive it, whether true or not. They are not there for the people. And if they are not there for the people, we must try and change their roles to make them there for the people. We should instead be making the decisions bottom up and they administer the decisions. As opposed to they make their policies and then impose it on us without talking to us. Right? For example, like the street protest bill, for example, like coming up, they are doing a race relations act. We don't even know what the act is talking about, right? But they talk about it. Okay? If I can just move on to the final module, right? Which is something that you all have to do. Any questions so far? I don't anticipate any questions because it's very clear, right? Very clear, right? Yawning and very clear. Just a short more while, right? People go through with us for 2 days. After you go through it, you're very energized and you'll be able to see a very big picture because you spend more time. We go through social contracts, we go through 57, we go through 69 riots, we go through the whole history, but we don't have time to do it. But what I want you to do now is, for all those of you who have gone and done your group work, right, go back to your groups, okay? Your groups that have done your problem and voluntary analysis. So if your group did traffic jam in Malaysia, go back and sit down, take that piece of paper. If you have done racial discrimination in Malaysia, go back and sit down and do this exercise, okay? The exercise is this. Now you are in a position as an action group to try and solve that problem, okay? What action will you take to try and solve the problem? What are the process and steps that you will take? And there's a lot of ideas here which have been suggested. There are 198 ideas, okay? Which you can contextualize within the Malaysian context. All you need to do is to choose 3, okay? Choose 3 based on the 3 questions. Rahul? You're supposed to draw up the thing. Can you get Rahul? Okay, based on these 3 questions, okay? Number 1, right? With your particular problem, number 1, who is the target? You always need to find the target. Right? This right, right? Stick it up. Can you stick it up? Okay? So the problem, who is the target? Meaning who is causing the problem. Okay? Number 2, right? What action will you take? So it comes back to the 198 actions. Right? And number 3, what is the resources and impact that you hope to achieve? Okay? And linked to that is what the resources. You think it's very easy to do a protest of 2,000 people. It's not easy because you have to mobilize across the board. You need to make sure security is alright. All these are resources. Can you go back, look at the cause and effect, come back, and then we talk about quickly some presentations. Let's say 2:30. Can we come back at 3 o'clock?
Yeah.
We come back at 3 o'clock. I want a quick presentation of 2 minutes each. And then after that, all of us vote on what is the best. And whoever gets voted the best gets some prize. Forget some UndiMsia merchandise.